The following is intended for mature audiences.
Before we get into this episode's chaos, let's kick this show off with a 911 call.
What is your emergency?
I just killed my family with a knife. All of them, all three of them.
What's your name?
Michael Miller. This isn't a joke.
I'm sorry?
This isn't a joke.
Okay.
Please come out here right away because I am terrified.
Are you sure they're not breathing?
My son was.
Where's your wife at?
They're all here in the kitchen. Please come out here right away.
Okay, you need to stay on the phone with me, okay?
I'm on the phone with you.
Just stay on the phone with me. Your name is what again? Mike?
Michael Miller.
Michael? Okay. Why? Have you been having some problems?
I don't know if it did something, but I'm not myself. I'm possessed.
Where's your wife at in the kitchen? Is she on the floor? Is
She's on the floor. She's on the floor.
Okay, what's her name?
Adriana Miller.
Have you been drinking tonight?
No, I'm not.
Okay. You don't have any other weapons on you?
No.
Okay, what color shirt do you have on?
I'm in my underwear.
Okay, I've got officers on the way. You just need to stay on the phone with me till they get there, okay? Is there anybody else in the house?
No.
Do you have a shirt on or just your underwear?
I'm just in regular underwear.
Are there any other weapons inside the house?
No.
Are you sure that you did this and you're not dreaming?
No, I'm positive. I'm positive. They are over there. They are dead. I'm not dreaming. Get someone over here.
Okay, they're on the way, Mike. You need to stay on the phone with me, okay?
Okay.
I've got them on the way. Why would your family be up this early in the morning in the kitchen?
Well, I work nights, and they woke up. I was threatening my wife with the knife, and my kids came out. I killed my wife, and I killed both my kids.
Okay, are you sure you're not dreaming, Michael?
I am positive. I swear to God, this is real.
Do you have any blood on your hands?
Yes, all over me. It's all over me.
Okay, Michael, like I said, I'm staying on the phone with you till we get there, okay? You just need to stay on the phone with me. Can you go to another room?
I'm outside. I'm waiting for them to come.
No, I don't want you to be outside.
Okay, I'm outside. God, Jesus, what happened?
And you just got off work?
No, I got off yesterday at 9. I came home, but I couldn't sleep. I haven't been sleeping.
Okay.
I had really a hard time sleeping.
Okay, so you haven't been to sleep tonight. And
no,
why is your family up at this time of the morning?
Because I scared the shit out of them. I was screaming at the top of my lungs.
Uh-huh.
And I killed them.
Do you have any other family members here in the Glendale area?
Not in Glendale. Well, her family.
Her family lives here?
Yeah.
Have you ever had any type of thoughts of doing this before?
Never, ever. It just hit me like a brick in the face. I don't even know why I did it. I don't even have a valid reason.
Michael, I'm hoping that you're just dreaming this.
I pray to God this is a dream.
Okay.
I hope to God this is a dream. I hope I am just fucking freaking out.
Okay.
I hope to God it is, but it's not. It's real. God, please.
Okay, it's your son and who else?
My daughter.
Can you go over and...
No, I can't. I cannot.
Why not?
I can't look at what I did.
Okay, well, you need to. You need to face up to the reality of this. You need to go and help him.
Okay, what can I do?
Okay, Michael.
What can I do?
Michael, listen to me. What I need you to do right now is I need you to go to the front door and I need you to step outside with your hands up in the air and stay on the phone with me.
Okay.
Are you going outside?
Yeah.
You're out the front door?
Yes.
Okay, you need to put the phone down and put your hands up in the air.
What?
Put your hands up in the air after you put the phone down. Put the phone on the ground and put your hands in the air.
So, back in 2009 in Glendale, Arizona, Michael Miller was 29 at the time, married, 2 kids, living what looked like a typical suburban life on the outside, right? But what ended up happening inside that house was anything but normal. One morning after about 4 a.m., Michael calls 911, which was what we just listened to, and says flat out that he just killed his wife and 2 kids. Now, the operator tries to keep him on the line while police rush to the scene, and when officers arrive at the house, they find Michael outside completely covered in blood, and inside, it's just a really brutal scene. His wife, Adriana, who was just 28, is dead. She had been stabbed multiple times, and one of the stab wounds had severed her spinal cord. Now, experts say that she didn't really suffer or feel pain due to her injuries. Now, his 10-year-old daughter, Valerie, is also dead. And then they find his 4-year-old son, Brian. He's still alive, but barely. He's been stabbed 11 times, and his injuries are serious enough that they have to airlift him to the hospital. From the very start, Michael's behavior is just all over the place, right? During the 911 call, as you can hear, he sounds out of it, then agitated, but then he goes to being coherent, clear, even calm. He's just switching it up all over the place. And by the time police get there, he's confused and kind of detached from what just happened. And then once he's in custody, he starts acting increasingly erratic. And it was reported at one point that he smeared feces, threatened officers, and made all kinds of bizarre claims, just totally unstable. He ends up getting a full psychological evaluation, and doctors confirm that he has a long-standing history of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. They document signs of paranoia, religious delusions, and hallucinations. He tells doctors that he was possessed by Satan, that he had some kind of religious awakening, and that during an argument with his wife, it felt like something had taken over him. Michael says he had been having issues with alcohol, and there was mention of a recent increase in his medication dosage. So you have that. Now, he also says that he was angry at his family and felt distant from them emotionally. So there's a lot going on here. Mental illness, substance issues, marital tension, and spiritual delusions just all tangled together, right? But here's where things take a turn. See, investigators start picking apart the crime scene and Michael's background, and they start seeing signs of premeditation here. First, there are these staged religious items around the house, placed in a way that feels symbolic, like someone wanted to make a spiritual statement here. Second, Michael had printed out 63 pages of information about mental illnesses like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, how mental illness affects core outcomes, stuff like that. That detail really stood out to detectives, obviously, because it raised these questions about whether or not Michael might have been trying to build a legal defense in advance. Something they call malingering, where someone fakes or exaggerates a mental illness to avoid full legal consequences. And on top of that, they found empty alcohol bottles in the home, suggesting he might have been under the influence during the attack. Officers also noted that Michael had injuries consistent with a struggle, which could mean his wife and daughter tried to fight back. And neighbors later told police that they had heard frequent arguments coming from the Miller house. Fights between Michael and Adriana weren't uncommon. So now it starts to look less like a sudden break from reality and more like this long building mix of mental illness, personal conflict, and possibly calculated planning. As for what Michael said happened, his version of events was that he and Adriana had been arguing, and during the fight, he felt possessed by Satan. He said it wasn't just rage, it was spiritual. He really believed that he had to do something drastic, and that he saw his family as part of this religious battle. And when they asked him to walk through the attacks, his delivery was cold. He gave details without really much emotion, and didn't show much remorse. So eventually, Michael was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for Adriana and Valerie, and 1 count of attempted murder for his son Brian. Oh, and yes, the son survived and was placed under protective care away from Michael permanently, which, when doing research for this case, I just wanted to dig around to see if I could find anything on Brian, just to kind of check up on him and see how he's doing, but he has disappeared from the public eye, and rightfully so. I mean, he deserves his privacy. He deserves to cope in peace out of the public eye, but just throwing that in there that I was curious, because I know some of you out there probably are as well, but I couldn't really find anything. Back to the case here. Faced with all the evidence and the expert evaluations, Michael eventually took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty and accepted life in prison without the possibility of the death penalty. So he wasn't found not guilty by reason of insanity, but instead he was held criminally responsible and sent to prison for life. Now, this case raised a lot of questions here, right? Not just about mental illness, but about how the legal system handles that, right? So is someone like Michael truly psychotic and unaware of his actions? Or was he just intelligent enough to plan around his diagnosis and try to manipulate the outcome? It's a very controversial take, I know, but that's just what made this case so controversial. Now, my question is, where exactly does mental illness end and responsibility begin? And those are questions that are very common when coming across cases like this. And on top of that, it really shows just how family dynamics and community warning signs just can go unnoticed. There are neighbors hearing fights, a man with a serious mental health history, substance issues, and yet no one saw this coming, or at least no one realized exactly how dangerous it all had gotten.
Welcome to a world where darkness and mystery converge. Navigate the depths of horror and true crime and join a society beyond the ordinary, where buzzworthy topics, paranormal tales, and listener-submitted experiences blend into a realm of the unknown. You have crossed into a place where the unusual and the terrifying are just the beginning. My name is Ralph Anthony, and welcome to the Scream Society podcast.
Hello, Screamers. Welcome into another episode of this variety podcast from hell. In a world where teddy bears made from human skin are surfacing, we have more excuses than ever on why we haven't seen the Epstein files, and not to mention me having so many long gaps between episodes these days. Yes, I'm calling myself out here. So with that, let me start off by saying, I hope you all are hanging in there. Life's been a lot lately, and I know I'm not the only one feeling it. And can we actually talk about that for a moment? Because as far as the episode release schedule and where I've been mentally, it's been a lot. And personally, there's so much happening. My 12-year-old dog's health seems to be declining, and I'm dealing with some pretty serious health. I'm being dramatic here. Right now I have a pretty serious case of dermatitis, and I don't know why my skin has decided to betray me in the most irritating, uncomfortable, and inconvenient way, but here we are. What makes it extra frustrating is that it had been in remission for about 8 or 9 years, and yes, that's a thing. Eczema, dermatitis, it can go into remission. Now, out of nowhere, it decides to make this big comeback. And a little backstory and story time here. Just the last time I had a serious flare up, it was like back in 2016 or 2017, one of those years, and it was so brutal. It had started in, I want to say, the springtime and didn't really let up until that following January. So from like April to that January, and it hit my face bad. And looking back, that was probably one of the lowest points that I have ever lived through, because I had never really experienced anything like it before. And not just because it was physically uncomfortable, but because it just completely wrecked my confidence, and I had gained weight and my self-esteem was gone, and I went to work and I went straight home and didn't really hang out with my friends, and I would just lay in bed on my free time, and even notice some permanent scarring and some changes to my face after that, which was tough to process. So yeah, like my self-esteem and all that, it's been a journey to get that back up, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So just fingers crossed that this round is shorter and a little more forgiving, which it already is. It's not on my face, it's more on my body. It still fucks with my mental health, but yeah, so with that, and I've definitely just been in my head a lot, and actually just like about everything, like about my skin, about my work, about creativity, just feeling a little disconnected, if we're being 100% honest here. And just because like when I'm feeling down, especially about those weeks where my content moves slower than usual, I'll obviously vent to those close to me. And like the one thing that I keep hearing over and over pop up is just be yourself, and if you were really yourself, you'd go viral. And I'm just sitting there like, what? And then I snap myself back to reality, like, what the fuck do you think I've been doing for these last 3 years? Like, this is me, this voice, this mind, this stupid shit I say, like what I react to, this constant just pull toward horror, true crime, weird stories, the dark shit. Like, that's who I am. Like, to me, being yourself doesn't always mean being loud or chaotic on the internet. Like, some of us have layers here, and some of us present different parts of ourselves depending on the space that we're in. And this podcast, The Scream Society, this version of me that you're hearing is just as real. In fact, it's the part of me that has always been suppressed and has always been too nervous or self-conscious to take front and center. I've said it before, like, I'm not trying to go viral here, because to me, anyone can go viral. And then that ends up being all that they're known for. Most people that do go viral aren't even being themselves and only thrive off of that one video. Now, I know some people can go viral and make a whole living off of it, which good for them. More power to them. Let them do that. But here, I'm trying to build something with some depth. And that is something that I have to keep reminding myself. So yeah, it's definitely been tough. So the breaks, all of that, it's just, I've just the way social media works now, like, everything's about perfect reels, viral hooks, grabbing people's attention in 3 seconds. But what about content with actual substance? What about following people who create because they love it, not because they're chasing numbers and trends? Like, it honestly takes all the fun out of it. And I'm trying to hold on to the joy of creating something honest. So yeah, like, my mind has just been tugging itself back and forth and all of that. But there's the trauma dump of the season that you all have been asking for. There you go. I've delivered. Anyway. But you know what? I'm here with another jam-packed episode. So for you loyal listeners, just for the millionth time, I wouldn't keep coming back if it wasn't for those of you who do get it. On that fucking note, let's get into Sinister Subjects. Okay, so remember a while back when there were rumors that were flying around that Annabelle, the haunted doll, had escaped or had gone missing during this mysterious tour that paranormal investigators had gone on with the doll. Well, I covered that, and everyone online was losing their minds, and turns out she didn't escape, but that obviously didn't stop the chaos from following her. Well, now there's another disturbing update involving Dan Rivera, a well-known paranormal investigator with the New England Society for Psychic Research, the same organization founded by Ed and Lorraine Warren, reportedly died on July 13th, 2025, while touring with the Annabelle doll. He was in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, part of the Devils on the Run tour, which was basically a traveling paranormal event where Annabelle was being showcased to the public. So Rivera was a lead investigator, someone who'd worked closely with the NESPR for over a decade and even consulted on Netflix's 28 Days Haunted. He was also known for going viral on TikTok, sharing haunted artifacts and spooky behind-the-scenes moments as well, which was really cool. Now, according to dispatch records, emergency crews were called to Gettysburg Hotel around 12:30 p.m., where CPR was performed on a man matching Rivera's description, and sadly, he didn't make it. The cause of death still hasn't been publicly confirmed. Now, let's talk about why this is so chilling. So, Annabelle, and I'm not talking about the porcelain doll from the Conjuring movies, but the actual Raggedy Ann doll, has been described as being demonically possessed. But as we all know, I don't believe that demonic entities can possess objects. I just think that they can manipulate their movements and become attached to the items. But the doll has allegedly been possessed since the late 1960s. The doll was then placed in a sealed glass case at the Warrens Occult Museum in Connecticut and has stayed there ever since, only being removed under strict conditions like for this tour. And here's the thing. Annabelle's been accused of causing injuries and even deaths before. Probably one of the most well-known stories was when a man reportedly mocked the doll while visiting the Warren Museum, banged on the glass, and laughed it off. On his way home, he lost control of his motorcycle and died in a crash. His girlfriend, who survived, later claimed that they had been joking about the doll just before the accident. Another person allegedly suffered a serious injury after disrespecting the doll, and yet another was said to have experienced a stroke within days of seeing her. Whether you believe in curses or not, the stories around Annabelle have followed a very consistent theme, which is very similar to Robert the Doll. Have you heard of that one? The doll that resides in a museum in Key West. So now, Dan Rivera, someone who worked with the doll professionally, respected the lore, and literally dedicated his life to the paranormal, dies suddenly while traveling with this doll on this tour, which I don't think that they should be on this tour, personally. People in the paranormal community are shaken, especially because Rivera had spent the past year building momentum around the tour. He was central to the effort to reintroduce Annabelle to the public, and just as that tour hits Gettysburg, this happens. And look, I'm not saying the doll did it, but if you believe even half of the stories that have been told over the years, the Annabelle doll tends to bring some sort of darkness wherever it goes, whether it's unexplained accidents, sudden deaths, or just a wave of chaos that follows it. Like, this doll has a track record, and I sound crazy for saying that, but it has a track record. So yeah, if you're thinking of seeing this doll on tour, I would suggest you might want to rethink that. What the fuck happened with the Sean Diddy Combs case, everyone? This one's been unfolding for a long time now, and it's so layered. Now, I did cover it briefly in episode 6 earlier this season. This case covered everything from civil lawsuits, federal raids, and years of allegations that myself and so many of you had thought finally caught up to one of the most powerful figures in the music industry, right? Just a brief crash course here. It kicked off in November of 2023 when singer Cassie unfortunately dated Diddy for years and filed a lawsuit accusing him of years of abuse, physical violence, coercion, and even sex trafficking. It was graphic, it was detailed, it was demonic. The whole thing was settled one day later, which raised a lot of eyebrows. But instead of dying down, that lawsuit opened the floodgates. So during the trial in early 2025, Cassie showed up and had gone into detail saying that she was forced to participate in freak-offs with multiple male escorts, and during these sessions, which there were multiple, she would be made to have intercourse with the men while Diddy watched. On some occasions, she alleged that the escorts would ejaculate on her, and afterward, she and Diddy would go to a separate room where he'd ask her to take the semen and rub it on his body. She said he specifically wanted it on his chest and nipple area. Now, as for the other handful of lawsuits, all with similar themes, at least 5 others, including one from a man with allegations going back decades, just accusing Diddy of making unwanted sexual advances, including touching him inappropriately and offering career advancement in exchange for sexual acts. He also claimed Diddy showed him footage of freak-off parties involving male performers. Now, some suits even described Combs allegedly drugging individuals before these encounters took place. It's stated that he used revenge porn style tactics, like threatening to release footage if people didn't comply or stayed silent. And do you see a common thread here? Using power and fear to control, abuse, and silence people. It's really sick. Now, Diddy's side argued that the prosecution exaggerated its case against Combs and has only shown evidence of his swingers, quote unquote swingers, lifestyle and personal drug problems, not a criminal enterprise. So all this time that this is going on, what are we looking at? Over 2 years? I'm thinking, are we really finally going to hold someone accountable for their disgusting behaviors? No. On July 2nd, the jury came to a verdict with a split verdict, and I wouldn't even call it split. The verdict is count 1, racketeering, not guilty. Count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, not guilty. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution, guilty. Count 4, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, not guilty. Count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution, guilty. I mean, at least we do have 2 guilties out of the 5, but the not guilties are wild. And now he's scheduled to be sentenced on October 3rd for the 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. And he could face a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison, with each count carrying a potential 10-year sentence. However, legal experts expect him to get away with less. And we're talking 4 to 5 years less. And here we wonder why victims stay silent. We wonder why nobody wants to come forward. And unfortunately, that is something that I have been naive enough to believe in the past. Just come forward and you'll have justice. No, it doesn't work like that apparently, because I actually know someone going through a really traumatic situation, and just how that is being handled so disgustingly. But telling victims, why didn't you report it sooner? Why didn't you come forward? Just say something. It's like, honestly, what's the point? From where I'm sitting, from where I'm running this mouth, coming forward feels completely pointless. I don't know. Apparently, it's a great year to be a human trafficker here in America. Because speaking of traffickers, don't think we forgot about that Epstein list Trump promised his voters to release, and now all of a sudden it's questioning why people still want to talk about it. Do I need to remind y'all, Jeffrey Epstein, this wealthy financier turned convicted sex offender, He was friends with and had connections ranging from royalty, celebrities, to powerful politicians, including Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and Prince Andrew. Now, there are people on this alleged list who just went to Epstein Island and were completely innocent, but there are people, high-profile people, on the list that did partake in the demonic behavior that went on there. So that's all we want. And no, not that fake little... Do you remember when Trump first got elected into office, when he gave these influencers that were up and coming binders? That's what did they say? Like the Epstein files, phase 1, and they all took a picture holding them up, but no one ever shared what was in it or anything, and everyone was just supposed to be okay with that. Like, that shit, like, what is going on? And Democrat or Republican, I am not discriminating my disgust here. We just want accountability. But this level of gaslighting, it's crazy. It's crazy. And one of the craziest parts of all of this is Sean Diddy Combs will probably still have a career after this. So while traffickers are let off the hook, what people really want to focus on here are Labubus. There are conspiracy theories and articles floating around that the world's favorite cute little keychain are actually demonic. Like, why are we just calling everything demonic here? Like, things that are actually demonic aren't being called demonic, but these things that aren't are always just the target. But yeah, they're calling these Labubus demonic, and of course, people are doing the most. They're out here burning their Labubus, and it's legit because... Okay, one of my friends has a photo of me holding mine that is right here next to me, and she posted it on her Instagram and later sent a screenshot that someone had shared her post of the picture of me holding mine with the caption, "Those things are so demonic." The doll or the holding it? Like, I'm probably more demonic than that fucking Labubu. Now, for those questioning what the fuck I'm talking about, this rumor started going around online this month. People were saying that this super popular collectible toy called Labubu was actually inspired by the ancient demon Pazuzu. And yes, the same demon from The Exorcist. Now, if you haven't seen Labubu, it's this fuzzy little toy monster with a huge grin and big eyes. It's cute. It honestly looks more mischievous and shady than anything like evil. But posts started spreading across TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, just showing side-by-side pictures of Labubus and Pazuzu, warning people with captions like, "Do not buy this demonic toy for your children or yourself," and like full panic mode. Some people even brought The Simpsons into it, like sharing clips from a 2017 Halloween episode where Homer Simpson buys a Pazuzu statue online and it ends up possessing baby Maggie. And funny enough, some of the posts spreading the rumor said it was Homer who got possessed, which isn't true, but you get the idea. People were linking Pazuzu to Labubu using anything that they could, any form of media to prove this point. Here's what I do know. And also shout out to y'all who wanted me to cover it on here. Like, I appreciate y'all. So what I know, there's no evidence that Labubu was inspired by Pazuzu. The toy actually comes from this 2015 storybook called The Monsters by a Hong Kong-born artist named Kasing Leung. Labubu is just one of the many characters in that series, and they were later turned into collectible toys by Pop Mart, which is this China-based retailer. The toys became this like massive hit internationally, and I mean, they are so hard to get a hold of. The real ones are, at least. So the rumor probably caught on because people saw this toy's little mischievous face and sharp teeth and just immediately wanted to jump to something darker. But if you look at Leung's actual inspiration for this, it's totally different. In one interview from Europe, Leung said he moved to the Netherlands as a kid and learned Dutch by reading tons of storybooks and fairy tales, especially ones from Northern Europe and Scandinavia. That's where the core vibe of the monsters came from. He even said, and I quote, "I always thought about my childhood, what I've read, and what I've always loved." So this whole series is kind of his love letter to Nordic folklore. Even Pop Mart fans describe Labubu as a troublemaker, but with a kind heart, always trying to help even if it causes chaos. It's pretty cute. So yeah, the sharp smile might look spooky to some, but the character is meant to be just lighthearted and uplifting, not demonic. And when you compare that to Pazuzu, it's just a totally different origin and look. According to historians, Pazuzu comes from ancient Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq. He was seen as a demon of the underworld, described as having bulging eyes, a canine-like face, wings, bird claws, and even a snake-headed hog. Grow up, that's slang for penis. So, not exactly toy shelf material. Pazuzu did become more widely known thanks to The Exorcist, and that connection has kept the name in pop culture. That's probably why people jumped on the idea. And also that Simpson episode didn't really help because people did share both of those alongside the rumor, which made it feel more real, I'm assuming. But yeah, again, based on everything Lung has said publicly and the story behind Labubu, I'm really sorry to break it to you, but there's just no connection to the demon Pazuzu. No similar design, no matching folklore, nothing beyond speculation. And unless Kasing Lung comes out and says otherwise, which he hasn't, this claim doesn't really hold up. So again, we want to focus on and get loud about all of that, but not be outraged and send articles about these freaky celebrities and government sex traffickers. Like, just doesn't make any sense. Actually, I wonder if anyone has posted any paranormal experiences with Labubus. Do I have to download the app to see the whole story? No. Okay, so I found one haunted experience from a Labubu that was posted 11 days ago on Reddit. This one is from user u/excitingfinger-4164. It says, "My friend and I were having a day out in town yesterday. We walked past a shop and she saw these Labubu things in the window. She was dying to get one, and I just kept going on about how scary they looked and how ugly they are. Anyways, she brought one and we unboxed it at dinner. She got the one she wanted. We laughed about it and then just focused on our meal. Anyways, we get back to her house, middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense trees and forests, and go to her room. We were in the middle of 10 Things I Hate About You, great movie, when she suddenly gets the idea to decorate it. She gives it false lashes, eyeliner, sparkly lips and cheeks, ear cuffs, and a chain necklace. We find it purely funny at this point and don't know what to do with the horrendous looking thing now, so she decides to clip it to her light shade. A while later, we decide to go out to smoke and watch the sunset, bearing in mind we are home alone and left the house at 11 p.m. We go into this field by the woods. It's next to her house. We smoke or whatever and start heading back to her house. Her dogs, 2 Cocker Spaniels, 1 Whippet, were with us and kind of had free roam around the field we were in and the field she keeps her 2 horses in. Her youngest spaniel was running through the horse field chasing something. At first we thought it was a big rabbit because from afar it looked like it was, but when I heard a different bark, not like a dog's, it was actually kind of terrifying. That is when I first paused and thought, that's definitely not a rabbit. Anyways, it got closer and it was a badger. I've never seen one before, but I hate these things. Her dog was chasing it, kind of attacking it, but it was running toward us until her dog chased it under a fence and into the woods. After a while of screaming for her dog to come back, we were going to go through the horse field to get back to hers, as it was the quickest way. The horse then tries to jump on her other dog and almost killed the thing. So by this point, we were very shaken up, like this stuff never happens to us at all. Rather than going through the horse field, we climb into a different field and go around it. Her dogs then started rolling and pawing at their faces, so we assumed it was a nettle. Wasp's nest. A wasp landed on my friend, so I tried to swat it away, but it ended up going into her jumper. She's deathly allergic, by the way. So she was on the brink of tears by the time we got back. We were both genuinely so freaked out. When does a Labubu come in where it gets haunted? We get to her room, she uses her phone torch, and the freaking Labubu is just dangling and looking at us. We forgot it was even there, to be honest. Anyway, we think nothing of it other than the fact that it still looks creepy as hell. We go to turn on her TV to finish 10 Things I Hate About You. It's not working. It was unplugged at the wall, not working. We check the back of the TV and the whole cable connecting to the wall has been taken out. Her TV is like airtight against the wall. You need long tweezers or something to take the cable out and put it back. Again, we were home alone the whole time we were out. What was the only other thing here? The Labubu. I swear these things are actually haunted because neither of us did it. We remember vividly leaving everything on before we left. Bad stuff like this has never happened until she got that freaky little doll. I'm convinced they're demonic/haunted. So apparently that's proof right there that the Labubus are demonic. Unless I wake up on the ceiling drooling green vomit and I have a crucifix up my ass, I'm going to look at my Labubu as just a trendy accessory. Welcome into Terrifying But True, the segment where I choose one random true crime or paranormal case and do a little deep dive on it. For this episode, you know that little horror movie called Scream? The one that flipped the slasher genre on its head in the 90s. Creepy phone calls, masked killer, small town panic, and I'm pretending like you don't all know what I'm talking about here. Well, what if I told you that behind all of that fiction was a very real person? A man whose crimes were so brutal, they inspired the entire story. I'm talking about Daniel Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper, and how his violent spree in Florida would eventually make its way into pop culture. Now, let's get into the real story behind the mask. When the unthinkable becomes reality, we find ourselves questioning everything, as some stories are too terrifying but true. So all this starts with a guy named Daniel Harold Rolling, but people called him Danny. He was born in Shreveport, Louisiana in 1954, and right off the bat, things weren't easy. His dad, James Rolling, was a police officer and a Korean War veteran, and he was incredibly abusive, physically, emotionally, just relentless. He beat Danny and his brother for the smallest things, even for breathing too loud. He constantly told Danny he was worthless and unwanted, and their mom, Claudia, didn't have much power in the house. She tried to leave the marriage a few times, but she always came back. It was that kind of household where everything revolved around the father's temper. There was even one time Danny had a dog that he loved, and the father beat the dog so badly that it died in Danny's arms. So by the time Danny was a teenager, he was already getting into trouble, arrested multiple times for things like peeping, voyeurism, and petty theft. Then he graduated into armed robberies in Alabama and Georgia. He couldn't keep a job, couldn't settle down. He did try, because at one point he was working at a Pancho's restaurant in Bossier City, Louisiana, but nothing ever stuck for long for him. Then in August of 1990, Danny did something that would change everything. He showed up in Gainesville, Florida, and started what became one of the most horrifying crime sprees in Florida's history. It started on August 24th, 1990. Danny had broken into an apartment shared by two college freshmen from the University of Florida, Sonia Larson, who was 18, and Christina Powell, who was just 17. He got in during the night. Christina was sleeping on the couch downstairs, and instead of attacking her first, he walked right past her, went upstairs, and found Sonia sleeping in her bedroom. He taped her mouth shut so she couldn't scream, then stabbed her to death. She tried to fight him off, but it was no use. After killing Sonia, he went back downstairs and did the exact same thing to Christina, taped her mouth shut, tied her up, raped her, and then stabbed her in the back 5 times while she was face down on the floor. He didn't stop there though. He went back upstairs and raped Sonia's corpse, then posed both of their bodies in sexually suggestive positions, and then took a shower before he left. The following night, August 25th, he did it again. This time, his victim was Krista Hoyt, an 18-year-old honors student at Santa Fe College. He broke into her place while she wasn't home and waited for her. When she finally came back late that night, he grabbed her, gagged her with duct tape, tied her wrists behind her back, and forced her into the bedroom. Just like before, he cut her clothes off, raped her, and stabbed her in the back, rupturing her aorta. Then he cut her open from the pubic bone to the breastbone. He left, but then realized he'd forgotten his wallet and went back. That's when he then decided to decapitate her. Again, posed her body sitting upright on the edge of the bed and placed her head on a bookshelf facing her body. So by now, the media had picked up on what was happening in Gainesville. Students were terrified, and it was only the first week of the semester. People started changing routines, dropping classes, staying with friends, or even leaving campus altogether. But Danny wasn't done. On August 27th, he hit a third apartment. This time it was Tracy Pauls and her roommate Manny Taboda, both who were 23. Danny broke in the same way he had before, pried open a sliding glass door. He found Manny first, and Manny was a big guy, former football player, and he put up a fight. But Danny had a knife, and after a struggle, he killed him. Tracy, hearing the noise, tried to hide in her room and lock the door, but Danny broke it down. He tied her up, raped her, and stabbed her to death, again in the back. This time he posed her, but left Manny where he had fallen. So, within 3 days, he murdered 5 students, all within a few miles of each other, all either bound, raped, stabbed, or completely mutilated. Most of the female victims were petite brunettes with brown eyes. Some people through the years have made that comparison because his mother was a brunette with brown eyes and was also petite. So after those murders, just like that, he vanished. No clear fingerprints, no DNA they could work with yet. The only thing police had was a pattern, some type of entry, some type of weapon, and the same ritualistic posing. So, as you could imagine, the town was in full panic. At one point, the police arrested a guy named Edward Humphrey, a student at the University of Florida who had a documented history of mental illness. He'd assaulted his grandmother and had a scarred up face, which made him an easy target for public suspicion. His face was all over the news, but it turned out he had nothing to do with the murders. A grand jury refused to indict him, and eventually he was fully cleared. Then something strange happened. Louisiana police reached out to Florida authorities about an unsolved triple homicide in Shreveport from November of 1989. It was a man named Ton Grissom, his daughter Julie, and his grandson Sean. They'd been murdered in their home while preparing dinner. Julie's body had been cleaned, mutilated, and posed, very similar to what was happening in Gainesville. An investigator from Florida named Don Maines went to Shreveport, saw the case file, and realized they were dealing with the same killer. Around the same time, a woman named Cindy Jurakich called Crime Stoppers and said, "You need to look into Danny Rolling." She knew him from church in Shreveport and said he used to say things like, "I've got a problem, I like sticking knives into people," and that he was going to leave town to watch beautiful women all day. It had stayed with her, and when she heard about the Gainesville murders, she couldn't let it go. So that tip led police to Rolling, and he'd actually been arrested on September 7th for robbing a Winn-Dixie in Ocala, Florida, just days after the last murder. He was already in jail, just 40 miles from Gainesville. Police matched his type B blood to the evidence at both the Gainesville and Shreveport scenes. They found tools that matched the pry marks on the sliding doors. They even found a camp he'd been living in, hidden in the woods near Gainesville, and inside were audio diaries where he talked about the murders. Later, they discovered another victim, a woman named Janet Frake, who had been attacked in her Sarasota home in early August. Danny broke in, bound and gagged her with duct tape, and raped her, but didn't kill her. Danny was eventually charged with the 5 Gainesville murders. His trial was delayed for years, but in 1994, right before jury selection, he suddenly pleaded guilty. During the sentencing phase, it came out that he had said he wanted to be a superstar, a serial killer on the level of Ted Bundy. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and paraphilia, which explains some of the sexual violence and corpse posing. On April 20th, 1994, he was sentenced to death. And 12 years later, on October 25th, 2006, Danny Rolling was executed by lethal injection in Florida. He didn't make any final statement, but right before his death, he gave his spiritual advisor a handwritten confession to the Shreveport murders, along with an apology. His final meal was a lobster tail, and just before the drugs kicked in, he sang a gospel hymn to himself. So, yeah. Scream might be my all-time favorite horror slasher. It may have been clever and meta and even fun in a twisted way, but what inspired it was very disturbing. 5 students murdered, communities terrified, and a man who wants to be famous for it. The horror that he created and just everything he did was just disgusting and sick. And Daniel Rolling didn't wear a ghost face mask, but the horror he created, that part was real. And now, let's dive into Ralph versus the Rod, where I take on your questions and do my best to give you a fair perspective and advice, because society is decaying and I'm here to call it out. As always, if you would like me to share an experience of yours, share something you find creepy or interesting, or simply want to ask me a question, send an email to screamsocietypodcast@gmail.com, or head on over to beacons.ai/The Scream Society and click on the Society submissions link. Everything remains anonymous. Do you ever get sequel fatigue? Like, do you think Jurassic World Rebirth deserves all of the hate? Personally, I enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll sound hypocritical and biased because some of my fave franchises have multiple sequels, like Hello, Scream 7 coming out. I know you did last summer 4, which is honestly one of the most gorgeous looking slasher films to date. But I think if it's done right, and they aren't just continuously rehashing the same formulas and doing the same callbacks over and over and over. And for instance, like Scream 5 wasn't my fave, but I think it was done in a way that it felt new in this modern world. Now, Scream 6, although having better scenes and moments, I was over it. I was over the recycled family revenge plot, and Scream, like those 2 films are probably my least favorite out of the whole franchise. And yeah, like I'm hoping that we really just change it up for Scream 7. But as far as Jurassic World, the issue that I'm hearing with the latest sequel is that it's recycling everything from the previous 6 films. I was actually listening to comedian Mateo Lane's podcast, and he went in, and his co-host Nick Smith went in, and it was pretty hilarious. But basically, what most people are saying, that it was boring or that the script was written by ChatGPT, and just all I have to say is, if you're a diehard, go see it. If not, wait for streaming. Or if you want to see Jonathan Bailey's bulge, see it immediately. But I will say, if you're going to advertise this new big bad monster, then utilize it. don't give it 30 seconds of screen time. So yeah, well, I don't think the new film deserves all the hate. I think that they should have worked on something a little bit longer than they did. Okay, so with Jurassic, it started as Jurassic Park, the first three, and then they had this whole reboot, which was in like 2015, right, with Jurassic World. That trilogy just ended in 2022, so it's only been 3 years, and they want to do another requel trilogy. Like, slow down just a little bit. Favorite movie outside of the horror genre? Clueless. Watch it, get into it. It was an era, it was a moment, and it is a legend. Imagine this little gay boy walking around trying to tell everyone as if, but I would say ask if, like, iconic times. Are you ever scared to sometimes bring politics into Scream Society? I used to be, but now, not really. I mean, that's why I created the Scream Society, so I could truly have a commentary on everything, including politics. So I could bring up just these topics that make the listener think and question everything, and don't just go along with something that someone sends them because it's in an article. Like, you need to question everything. And I do understand how politics can be scary for some creators. Like, politics are crazy, and like, okay, while I don't want to solely focus on that, if it is something that's on my mind, I'm going to call it out, even if it's from the political side I align with. So I really don't call this my variety show from hell for nothing. Last question. We'll do one more question. And this one really, I got a kick out of this because I've had something like this before, but this one just says, are you a Satanist?
What?
I'm not a Satanist. I've read up on it before, actually, because of a case I covered a while back about, I think it was this couple from Germany who were satanic vampire cannibals, which sounds so extreme. But while I was doing research, I got into looking into that religion because there was a part of it that said that the Church of Satan distanced themselves from cases like these. Or so people don't think that all people who call themselves Satanists behave this way. And yeah, like when I was doing that research, I was extremely surprised because Hollywood and people love to paint these assumptions based on like aesthetics or just not understanding something. And are there Satanists out there who practice the extreme shit? Absolutely. Just like there are extremist religious cults from all religion who kill people because God told them to. I mean, we have that. But there's a big difference between the Church of Satan, which is more about individualism and logic and not believing in any actual deity, and the Satanic Temple, which uses Satan more as a symbol of rebellion against tyranny or religious control. Neither one is about like sacrificing goats or anything people assume. But yeah, it's kind of wild how people hear Satan and instantly think it's some evil underground cult, when a lot of modern Satanism is actually very rooted in rationalism and personal freedom. But still, don't get it twisted. Like, it's still not my thing personally, but it's not what people think it is. And I wouldn't be some type of way toward anyone who is, if I were to come across them in person. But I think where I'm at spiritually is I'm just trying to find my faith again. The faith that I'm used to seeing or grew up with doesn't align with who I am now. I believe in a higher power, of course, that is good. Just being a genuinely good person and allowing and giving yourself and others grace. But this calling out other religions or making religion political has turned me completely off from what is trying to be preached out there. Like, just look at it this way. How has that behavior, bringing God into politics and using God to push these extreme viewpoints, like how has that become so normalized? Someone who is religious but is a horrible human versus someone who is a practicing Satanist who would probably be more kind and respectful, but they're the ones who would be dismissed or shunned. Again, still not for me, but I just question everything, and I wish a lot more people would question everything more. Thank you for listening into this episode. Again, remember to check out the Scream Society merch. It's really cool. Scream-society.printify.me. I've got some new and updated items up. Also, if you're loving the show, please take some time and leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really does help support this podcast for free and really push it out there. Anyway, I love you for listening, and until next episode, I'll scare you then. I'm not a Satanist.
Thank you for tuning into the Scream Society podcast, hosted, written, produced, and edited by yours truly, Ralph Anthony. Help the society grow by subscribing on your favorite platform and leave a rating and review. I always strive for 5s. Have a horror or paranormal experience? Want me to answer your questions on the show? Submit to beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Connect with the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Scream Society Podcast. And until next time, I'll scare you on the next episode.